Hello YouTube, and welcome to this new video with an extra comfy setting. So I'm certain that if you clicked, it's because you know who Hamza is, and you most likely watch him. I personally caught a few of his videos back in the days, and so I was aware that he was a guy who gives advice to young men on how to be more masculine, how to become a man, how to be more comfortable talking to girls, etc. But recently I was recommended one of his videos that spoke about fitness, and I realized that it actually made up a large portion of his content. So that interests me quite a bit, because if some of my subscribers follow his advice, I want to make sure his advice is quality. And I'm certain that you want that as well. So if you're someone who trusts my fitness expertise, today's video is going to be simple. I'm going to go through his video and I'm going to say whether or not I agree with what he says or if you should avoid his advice like the plague. Pretty much, is this training advice legit or is it straight poop? For those of you interested, the video is called The 5 Biggest Reasons Why You Can't Gain Muscle. And we're going to start off with number 1. The number 1 reason why you cannot build muscle according to Hamza is because you refuse to bulk. Many young men spin their wheels for years and years staying skinny and they wonder why. And the reason why is because, like Hamza says, they are deathly afraid of putting on weight, which is stupid because if you want to put on muscle, you have to put on weight. If you don't do that, you're going to waste years of muscle building potential. The very reason why this idea is put in young men's head in the first place is because many YouTubers have realized that if you tell people that they can gain muscle and lose fat at the same time, that's extremely attractive. This is the type of things that is going to make people want to click, but of course, it's completely incorrect. It's not how it works. Hamza calls them dickheads. I think that he's being generous. Usually what these types do is they know full well you want to be aesthetic and big, but they also know that you have an obsession with leanness and a six-pack. You want to be aesthetic and shredded. So what they do is they promise you can get both. Of course, you cannot get both. Even they couldn't get both. Most of the people who push that idea of Maingaining are people on steroids. Hamza cites Greg Doucette. Greg Doucette was pointed out and singled out as one of the people that promoted Maingaining, which made many young men get absolutely no results whatsoever. It could work if you recomped, but many young men don't have what it takes to recomp, so it's not something they should follow. It would be the equivalent of trying to build a clay statue and wanting to make it as big as possible, but also at the same time refusing to add more clay. You quickly understand that this means your statue is going to stay small and puny for the rest of time. So you absolutely have to get up in weight. So that is a good start. I was pleasantly surprised to see this. For the simple reason that I had a level of prejudice regarding Hamza. You see, to me, he was one of the many these copycats that you see on YouTube nowadays who are just trying to peddle the same bullshit lifestyle of party drugs, of easy women, and of fitness, which is in reality just taking drugs. He doesn't do that, however. He actually actively says in the video that men who want to get bigger need to focus on building muscle before getting lean, and that's absolutely correct, even for a six-pack. I know it's surprising to hear. If you want a nice six-pack, getting shredded won't cut it. You need to build the abdominal muscles, then get lean. That's how it's done, but not the other way around. If you want to stay lean forever, you will never build muscle, and therefore you will never actually get big. So that's excellent. However, I have an issue with the way Hamza presents it, because it seems to me like he's saying that the majority of YouTube fitness promotes Maingaining. That's not true. There are only a few people who do. Just because these people have a ton of visibility does not mean that they are the majority. But I personally refuse to be put in the same bag as Greg Doucette, as I believe it to be unfair. There are many people, me included, who have been warning people about the Maingaining meme, who have been trying to introduce nuance into the debate. If Hamza doesn't know that and he thinks that he discovered that Maingaining is shit, he needs to take a step out of his own comfort zone and echo chamber, because many channels are aligned with that message as well. Of course, if you only watch mainstream fitness, you won't know that. Let's move on to number 2, the second reason why you are not building muscle. It's because, according to Hamza, you fell for the bulking meme. So at first he tells you not to cut, he tells you to bulk and to not maingain, then he tells you that bulking is also bad. So what the fuck does he want? Well, I think that what he wants is he wants you to think with nuance. And again, I'm pleasantly surprised because it is very common for YouTubers to be black or white, to pick a team, to be dogmatic, because many people like it. Many people don't like to be told to use their brains. They want to be told exactly what to do and how to live their lives. That's not how to become a man. If you want to become a man, you want to have critical thinking skill, and Hamza is attempting to get you to think critically by making you understand nuances. So what looks like a counterintuitive message of don't bulk but also don't cut is not that. He's actually telling you that if you want to gain muscles, you are going to have to select a mode of eating that is going to be aligned with that goal. And that is an excellent message because something that works for someone doesn't work for another. Example, I've just been recomping for 3 years. It worked beautifully for me because I had what it took to recomp, aka fat. If someone like Hamza attempted to recomp, he would have stayed small. So that's an excellent message once again. Hamza even gives you clear numbers. He tells you to bulk up to 180. And that again is nuanced, okay? He's not telling you to stuff your face to get to 180 as fast as possible. He's telling you to set a respectable goal, a body weight goal, and then train and eat to reach that goal by gaining muscle. That's what he meant by the bulking meme. Many people stuff their face for the sake of getting bigger. I was one of them, and they just end up fat. Being fat is not aesthetic, so that's excellent. There is no universal answer, and young men that look for universal answer will usually end up following mainstream fitness channels with fitness gurus that will feed you that answer, an answer that tends to be bullshit, and you end up yo-yoing between extreme cuts, extreme bulks, or sticking to one and the other and never getting the physique of your dreams. He also brings up the fact that, yes, a calorie is a calorie in terms of energy, but not in terms of quality. However, once again, Hamza seems to think that he discovered that. He even goes as far as to say that he never heard anyone on YouTube Fitness saying this.
The critique that I have for these dirty bulk guys, which no one has ever said in the fitness industry before. No one online says this, and it pisses me off. These simpleton YouTubers don't know this. This is probably the first time you've ever heard someone criticize the calories in, calories out.
Bro, we've been saying this for years. I don't know what type of schmuck you follow, but the only people who are not there yet are people that are laughing stocks, pretty much. The dudes who say that the calories in an apple and the macros in an apple are the same as the calories and the macros in a candy, again, are clowns. We make fun of these people because they understand absolutely nothing of nutrition. This is an issue I'm seeing with Hamza, and it's going to repeat itself and get much worse for the video. And that is that he really does look like he thinks he discovered warm water, or as I put it, he has this not like the other girls mentality where he really wants you to think that he's the good guy and he's the one giving good advice and anyone and everyone else is just giving shit advice. And that's simply not true. Everything that Hamza says, people have been saying on this platform for 10 years plus. And if you discover them through Hamza, that's great, but understand that he didn't invent them. I think that what's happening here is a form of Dunning-Kruger effect, in which someone who is still relatively new at a certain concept ends up believing that they're extremely advanced because they don't know enough yet to understand that they know nothing. I also think that the fact that he has a ton of teenagers who worship him and call him Adonis and think that he's the greatest thing since Jesus Christ is not helping him. It's sort of letting his ego get in the way of his ability to learn new things. And we'll come back to that because it gets very relevant the more we move on. But so far as points, it's good, okay? Point 1, point 2, I am in full agreement with. So let's move on to the third advice. The third advice and the third point that Hamza brings up is that if you're not putting on muscle and getting muscle, it's because your testosterone level is low. And you know, when I was watching the video, I sort of knew what Hamza was and who he is, and so I understood that at some point shit was going to hit the fan. It was like watching a horror movie where you know that the monster is around the corner, and when it shows up, you knew it was going to happen, but you're still afraid. Here it was the same, but I wasn't scared, I was disappointed. because I find it extremely ironic that Hamza would conclude the bulking section of his video by saying that no one tells you the truth and he is the only one saying the truth, and that no one tells you to eat clean because it's not sexy and doesn't get clicks, then immediately segues into the biggest fitness bait of the past 2 years, and that is test levels.
Majority of men have low testosterone levels.
Nowadays, whenever a man is not getting the results that he wants because he's skinny or because he is not jacked in 2 years or 3 years, the first answer that you see from people like Hamza is because he has low test. And Hamza is not the worst with that, but I just want to point out that this has become a trend. And usually trends are not good. This trend is something that masculinity gurus like to use because they play off of your insecurities. You don't feel good in your own skin. So what they do is they offer a reason, they offer a boogeyman, and this boogeyman is your test levels. The issue is that this boogeyman is something that is still within you. So you still feel bad because you're still the one who is not man enough biologically. You're not able to produce the hormones. And then they come up with the solution. The solution can come in two forms. One, it can come in the form that Hamza gives most of the time, which is lifestyle changes. If someone tells you that your test levels are low and they can boost it, if they tell you that the only way to boost it is to training, diet, sleep, etc., you can listen to them, okay? It might not be fully accurate, but at least it's not dangerous. The ones that I want you to pay attention to are the ones who make you pay for it, who make you buy pills, test boosters, seminars on how to be more alpha and how to raise your test. These people are scam artists. Now, Hamza, from what I understand, is not like that. But the fact that he presents low test levels as a reason why you are not getting jacked is a problem in my opinion, because most often that is not true. Most often that is used as an excuse to justify the lack of results that you are responsible for. And in the worst case scenario, sometimes it leads to TRT. Many young men get tested, realize that they have low T, and they jump on TRT, which is the dumbest thing because they never fix their lifestyle. From what I know, again, Hamza doesn't encourage people to do that. He tells people to stay natty, and again, that is good, but also don't fall for the mistake of hyper-focusing on your test levels. It's a waste of time. The only thing worth doing is modify your life so as to be more anabolic in terms of things you do, your hobbies, what you eat, how you train, and then it'll take care of the test levels. If you do it the other way around and you reverse engineer and you start with the test levels, you are never going to get anywhere. Nowadays, I see too many young men who point out to the past and say, well, that guy in the 60s looked jacked, natty, but it's because he had better tests than me, so I look like shit and it's not my fault. Bogus. People in the past were poisoned with all of the nonsense that we put in the walls of the houses. There was heavy metal poisoning in the water and they were doing just fine. The microplastics in your water is not responsible for your small biceps. I can guarantee you that. The problem is, yes, the environment, but it's the environment that you choose to live in. Again, I'm sure that people will tell me that that's exactly what Hamza says. I want to make clear that to me, the very idea of blaming low test levels and saying that it's the reason why you're not getting progress is an issue in and out of itself. If you want to hear more about that, there's a full video about how testosterone is overrated. It's in the description. So that was for number 3. It's still not bad, but it's a red flag enunciating of things to come. Because we then move on to number 4. Number 4, which according to Hamza is that you don't train hard enough. You're not big because you don't train hard enough. I've heard that times and times again. And the issue is that it's the same as with test levels. It puts the blame and responsibility on you, which is always great, on an emotional level, which is questionable, that then leads to more questionable practices. Because what exactly does Hamza think training hard means? Greg Doucette, for example, has his own definition of training hard that many people disagree with. So what exactly is Hamza going to tell us about training hard? Well, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but this is when we enter poop territory, because according to Hamza, you're not training hard enough, and to prove it, he offers an experiment. So the experiment is very simple. You go to the gym, and instead of doing multiple sets, you do only one. According to him again, you should find that you're able to do more reps on that one set, as opposed to if you did multiple sets, which in his head means that high volume workouts with multiple exercises and sets take away from your ability to push yourself. This mindset is flawed. This experiment doesn't work for two reasons. The first reason is that regardless of the amount of sets that you do on this given day, set one is still set one. Meaning that if you're able to do more reps with the same weight, it's only because you are sandbagging in the past, which cannot be blamed on the following sets, seeing as the following sets hadn't happened yet. Let me again use the same example that Hamza used. Example 1, you come in, you do 4 sets. Example 2, you do 1 set. In both cases, set 1 is still set 1, meaning that there was no set to precede it, so nothing to fatigue you. So the sets that come after it cannot be blamed in terms of physiology. They can be blamed, however, in terms of psychology, meaning that it's possible that you know in your head that you have more sets to do, and therefore you sandbag, meaning that you don't go as hard as you could on purpose on set 1 to be able to survive the following set. In which case, the issue was not the amount of volume you did, it's your approach to the volume. This experiment is only valid if you use it to then go on to do more volume. Hamza never clearly states the goal of the experiment. He just tells you that it's going to make you understand what intensity is. But I want to make you understand that if what you took from his advice is that you have to do only 1 set, you are doing it wrong. The second reason why this experiment and the resulting conclusions don't make a lot of sense is because regardless of how many extra reps you get on set 1, it can never make up for the additional reps you would get on the other sets. Meaning that, let's say you come in and you do only 1 set and you do 17 reps. Okay, great. The second scenario is you coming in and doing 4 sets, and on set 1 you only get 13 reps. So it's 4 less reps. You could tell me 4 less reps, yes, but then I do 3 extra sets, each with at least 10 reps. So at the end of the day, I have 30 reps on you. That's more work. I did more work. The only way to say that this is not correct is to claim that the 4 last sets of set 1 are more anabolic and hypertrophic than the 30 reps combined of the other 3 sets. You could think it's funny and goofy, but I have heard people say that. And actually it's the point of Maingaining and HIT, that additional sets take away from the first set, which is an anachronic view of training that I cannot espouse. But sadly, Hamza also sort of engages in that, both, again, by stating that following sets can take away from the first set, and here implying that following sets can take away from the first set as well by their occurrence. Now again, I want to reiterate that Hamza doesn't tell you to do that for the rest of your life. He only tells you to do it for 1 workout. But it has to be made clear that this is not a good way to train, because to me, again, it sounds to me like Hamza discovered HIT and he fell in love with the practice. I've found some lingo in his video with stuff like grinding out more reps once you've reached failure.
And then when it gets tough and you're at failure, you really want to drop the weight because it's painful. Keep going. Remind yourself that this is the only set that you have. Keep going. Push through it. There's gonna be a time when you really can't push anymore, but you can. You don't realize it. And you get stuck here. What you can do is push literally and try and push it millimeter by millimeter. Every little bit, millimeter by millimeter. Just keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing. Get the rep, boom. Then go for another rep. Go slow, go slow, go slow. Push, push. You're stuck here. Just push, just push. Literally, you've only got this set. Don't let go. You've literally just got this set. Don't pussy around. Keep going, keep going. You're literally there for like 10 seconds. It's fucking painful. This is the worst, most painful set that you've ever had in your entire life. Drop it.
This makes no sense whatsoever. Hamza is not the first one to do that. A lot of people like to peddle that type of nonsense. I've heard millions of times people saying, well, if you think you have no more reps left, you have 2 left. Even Tom Platt used to say things like this. The issue is that this makes no sense. I hope you understand that this is not reality, right? Life is not an anime. And this is coming from a guy with an anime t-shirt. If you get 10 reps and then you can psych yourself and get 2 more reps, guess what? You are sandbagging. The 10 reps you were doing before was you not putting in 100%. So if that is the message of Hamza, then good. Because it means that he's telling people that they have to learn how to train to failure. But the hocus pocus nonsense that surrounds the advice and the method that comes with it, it aligns with the no pain, no gain mentality that is so prevalent in the West. A mentality that to me is only a reflection of male power fantasies. And it is very prevalent in Hamza's training advice, where he tells you to grind your teeth, that if you don't feel pain or if you don't suffer, it's not going to do anything, you won't actually gain muscle.
Bro, hypertrophy, to build muscle, you've got to tear your fucking muscle. You've got to tear it. It's deeply painful. If you do a set and you don't have this like painful, terrified look on your face, like... You're probably not gaining that much muscle, honestly. You're probably not training that hard.
All of that is emotion. All of that is not logical. There is no logical connection between pain felt in the muscle and hyperbolic response within that same muscle. Keep in mind that intensity is first and foremost a number. That is all it is. Whatever else is there, the sensation in the gym is just that. It's just a sensation. You can scream as much as you want, you can get red in the face. It does not mean that you're being intense. What matters is the weight you lift in relation to the maximum amount of load that you can lift. It starts and ends there. And to me, this also indicates that Hamza is not 100% on point when it comes to that concept, because he tends to promote the idea that grinding out reps and doing a ton of reps is a good thing because it's painful and it gets you to your limits. But all of that, for the most part, just means that you're getting a pump, right? All of these painful sets that you pull through and you struggle and you see all of these bodybuilders do, that is for the pump, that is it. And we know that the pump is not a good indicator of muscle growth. So all of that is really just warrior speech. It's trying to trigger your warrior's instinct to go hard in the gym, but you're only going hard as theatrics. You're not actually going hard, which is interesting because Hamza's whole point is that you don't train hard enough, but then he offers you a method that replicates hard training via parameters that try to, again, mimic intensity without actually managing to be intense. And then he's going to tell you that now you train hard enough. Well, no, you have the sensation that you train hard enough. You still might not be training hard enough. And I think it's ironical because to Hamza, again, many fitness YouTubers apparently just peddle things that are nonsense and that are just sexy and for the click. And that's exactly what he does. All of that shit about saying, yeah, no pain, no gain, push through it. All of that Mike Menzer thing. All of that was aligned with this. It was aligned with saying things that men like to hear to get them to train in a certain way, even if that certain way is not proven to be accurate or even relevant for hypertrophy. But we're going to see that. I'm going to expand more on that when we get to step 5, the fifth reason why you're not getting muscles. There is actually a fake step 5, and that is sleep. Hamza doesn't spend much time on it, so I won't either. But he does say that sleep is not that important for muscle growth, to which I agree to an extent. What I want to say, however, is that just because you can gain muscle with subpar sleep does not mean that you should have a shitty sleep schedule. Sleep is very important for cognitive abilities, to regulate your mood, for hormones, and most importantly, for overall health. It decreases the risk of disease like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. It decreases the risk of heart attacks, etc. So please get your sleep. I know I'm also the type of guy who is going to skim an hour or two because I want to make an extra video. It's not a good thing. That grind set nonsense of if you sleep one less hour, you have one more hour to grind. Yeah, that's good, but it also is going to sap your vitality down the line. So don't do that shit. In that section, there was also a point where Hamza was filming himself shirtless in a club. So I think he was trying to make the point that it's possible to go clubbing and to make gains. That is also where I want to come back on what I said previously about him not being a Ziz copycat, because who the fuck goes to a club shirtless? I find it pathetic to an extent. If I saw a guy shirtless in a club, I wouldn't look at him and think, wow, that's an alpha. I would think, well, that guy is either a weirdo on MDMA or he's trying way too hard to be like his favorite fitness influencer. Just my 2 cents, it might just be because I am an old fart and I hate clubs with a passion. Now, let's move on to point number 5. The fifth reason why you're not getting muscles. According to Hamza, it's because you don't progressively overload. And this is when we are starting to see the limitations of Hamza's understanding of training. I think the reason why I don't fall for his persona and charisma of Adonis is because, one, I'm older than him, so I have a tough time looking at him as a role model. But I've realized that the reason why I cannot take him fully seriously is because you can see the bottom of his eye. Like, you can see the white of his eye when he looks at the camera. It does make him look a little bit goofy and dopey even. So I have a natural instinct to not trust him entirely, which I think is a good thing. You should do that also. Next time you find yourself falling for the Hamza quote, look at him in the eye. And that is going to take you back down to earth and make you understand that you have to use your critical thinking skills. Because if you don't, you're going to follow his advice for progressive overload, which starts nice. Hamza tells you that many people approach progressive overload from an emotional perspective of trying to put as much weight on the bar as possible. And they come in and they say, okay, today I want to lift this, and that's what they'll lift, which is, of course, absolutely idiotic because it leads to plateau and it leads to frustration. So Hamza's solution is to pick an exercise, then select a rep range and try to progress within that rep range. So far, so good. Excellent advice, even better than most fitness YouTubers that are mainstream. The issue is with what follows. Hamza then tells you that 10 to 15 is the best rep range for hypertrophy and that you should never go below 8.
If you really want to build muscle, don't do anything underneath 8 reps. And even 8 reps is actually a little bit too heavy.
You lost me, bro. You lost me. It was going so well. There was nuances. There were red flags of the I'm not like the other fitness YouTubers shit. But then this 8 is too high for hypertrophy and 10 to 15 is the best rep range. How the fuck did he get that? Hamza claims to not watch YouTube Fitness, and I think that this is the proof that he should, because it could prevent him from saying stupid shit like this. You see, when you end up thinking that you know everything, like 10 to 15 is the best rep range, you stop learning. And as a man, that is the death of your progression. You're going to stagnate forever. You should always look at rep ranges as opportunities to progress. If you limit yourself to only 1 or you never go below 8, you are going to sabotage your gains. That actually might be the reason why you're not putting on muscle. And that is also, to me, a dead giveaway that both Hamza's understanding of intensity and rep ranges is actually really shallow. Because when you encourage people to go beyond failure on 10 to 15 reps, and you tell them, oh, when you get 15 reps, you can get 2 more. Yeah, you can get 2 more. You know why? It's because 15 reps is not a relevant rep range at this point. So you can grind more reps. This is a clear sign that the weight and the load that you're using is not challenging to the muscle, because you can literally get more reps even when you reach failure, which means that you never actually reach failure, meaning also that any additional rep afterwards is junk volume. And then Hamza calls this intense training. When you discourage people from doing something like a 6 to 10, what you're doing is you're not promoting intense training. You're doing the exact opposite. You are promoting a type of intensity that is correlated with the pump, but something like a 6 to 10 represents actually much greater intensity than a 10 to 15, because you would be using more relevant weight, meaning also that you would get to actual mechanical and muscular failure. At some point, to progress consistently, you need to expose the muscle to heavy loads. I absolutely agree with him that doing a 1 rep max is useless for hypertrophy. 2 rep maxes, 3 rep maxes as well. If it's 90% of your training, you're doing something wrong. I made a video about that in the past. Most of your rep ranges should be in the 6 to 15 rep range. 6 to 15, not 10 to 15. 10 to 15 is way too small because it's not including enough relevant intensity rep ranges. Because truly, saying that 8 reps is too heavy is not just dumb. It also leads to plateaus. And Hamza's advice again is to help you avoid plateaus so as to make sure that you gain muscle. So that's also counterintuitive. It's very easy to understand. Focusing on reps instead of weight on the bar eventually stops working, just like focusing on weight on the bar instead of reps also stops working. You have to use both. Hamza told you to be more nuanced and not to be black and white. He should apply the same advice.
But at the same time, I don't expect you to totally believe me, because all of those YouTubers who are lying to you, who are scamming you, who are showing you Krispy Kreme donuts, who are telling you to maintain, will also say that this is overtraining. So you can trust them if you want and stay skinny fat forever.
Keep in mind that Hamza's only been training for 6 years. So when I look at his almost absolute and godlike confidence when he gives advice, I can only surmise that it's because his popularity got to his head. He got millions of subscribers and he ended up believing that he's good, he knows everything, and he's done learning, and his wood is now low. That is not the case. And by doing that, actually, he resembles the fitness YouTubers, the mainstream fitness YouTubers that he criticizes, because he starts to give absolute advice that are not going to align with what his subscribers need to hear. And something that struck me in that vein was the fact that he claimed that people would see immediate results within 2 weeks if they switch to 10 to 15.
If you do the 10 to 15, just give it a try and you'll be like, fuck, like I can see the growth a couple of weeks from now.
I hope he knows that that's bogus. You will never see visible muscle results in 2 weeks because you change the rep range. It's not how that works. The rep range is a parameter for progression, not the progression itself, and that's not enough time to grow. And if it was only in this video that happened, it would be sort of forgivable, but it's in his titles as well. He He has a tendency to tell you that you can change immediately. Do these 5 things to be more attractive now. That's bogus. He knows it's bogus because he criticizes other people for doing it, then he does it himself.
And obviously they say this because it gets more likes to tell people, like, you'll gain muscle and lose fat at the same time. Whoa. Because being a guy who tells you, yep, eat clean, it's not as sexy.
It's why I laughed at the not like the other girls gimmick that he's trying to pull. The video is peppered of him saying, hey, all of these other guys are lying to you, but I'm the one telling the truth. Really? How do we know that? Because from what I understand, 50% of the advice of the video is bogus. That comes from me. You can mistrust me, but what I want you to do is also mistrust him. Instead of just taking one guy and saying, okay, this is my savior, and following him blindly, use your critical thinking skills. This is what Hamza's conclusion should have been, but instead, no. He wants you to have him as your only one. He wants to replace fitness YouTubers. It's the only thing I can gather from his attitude towards fitness in particular.
They're literally scamming you. You know why? Because it gets more clicks. Fucking dickhead bodybuilder like this.
He seems to truly believe that he knows better than the rest of us, and therefore that it would be best if everyone just turned to him for advice. Well, if everyone ended up doing 10 to 15 and never going below 8 reps, I think that the average physique would actually degrade. And it wouldn't be any better from the type of mainstream fitness YouTubers that we have nowadays. So overall, as a conclusion, I would say that his fitness advice is still very decent, especially for noobs who know nothing, but that when it comes to more advanced parameters of programming, he has a lot of work to do and a lot of things to rethink, especially if he wants to take his physique to the next level, because as I said, he has potential to grow. He can be much bigger than this and stronger than this, but not if he sticks to these antiquated and frankly quite reductive methods. And it also goes for you who watches him. If you want growth, I recommend still listening to Hamza if you like, but also paying attention to people for who fitness is the one thing, not something they do on the side as an addition on their channel. And if you want names, I can cite you Facelifts, I can cite you Alpha Destiny, I can cite you Geoffrey Verity Schofield, Born Only Man, Basement Bodybuilding, all channels that you should visit because these are actual pure lifters that only lift and therefore have a very refined understanding of what works and what doesn't. And if they want to chime in the comments, you'll also get to verify that I'm not bullshitting. None of them would ever tell you to never go below 8 reps, ever, because that is garbage advice. Overall, when taking advice from people, it's always best to select those with more experience, even if they're less relatable because they're not your age. For the most part, this means that they had more time to accumulate wisdom and therefore also more knowledge to pass down to you. And I'm going to conclude this video on that note. Thank you for watching. Have a great night.